Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and I have an awesome show for you today because my guest is awesome. So before I get into interviewing my guest, I want to just say welcome if you're here at the Heal Your Hunger Show for the first time. This is where we talk about everything beyond diets, beyond exercise programs, beyond pills, potions, and lotions. Okay, are you sick of that stuff or what? Good God. That's not where the answer lies. The answer lies in going deeper, addressing and healing the underlying causes of emotional eating. That's what Heal Your Hunger is all about. End emotional eating now. I truly believe in my heart of hearts, that's the gap between what you know you should eat and following through on eating it. So when we are addicted to food, when we have an emotional dependence on food, it's really hard to follow through. Right? Like we know we should eat salads, but we end up eating pizza because we want the hit of something yummier, something more carb rich, something ooey gooey and chewy. So whatever it is, I get that pull. I was 50 pounds overweight. And we got to talk about what that's about, what's really going on. And we're going to do that on today's show. I also want to invite you to be a part of the Secret Sauce group on Facebook. Go to Facebook and type in the secret sauce to end emotional eating now. And we talk about all those things in the Facebook group. I post every day. I have announcements. I do cool videos. And you're the first to hear about great free classes that I'm doing and all kinds of fun stuff. So join us there. You'll get invited to everything first before anyone else. Okay, so my guest today is Susie Pettit, and she's been helping women live lives they love for over 10 years. She's the host of the podcast Love Your Life show and the owner of the wellness company Strength, Mind, and Body. And she's passionate about helping women live lives that feel good, as good on the inside as they look on the outside. So she spent more than half her life living a life she did not love. As a people pleaser, codependent, perfectionist, trying desperately to win an award for Martyr of the Year. So we're going to learn more about that today. So she's a beautiful woman. I really like her and her message, and I'm excited to interview her. Well, Susie, so happy to have you here. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, I'm so happy to be on your show, Tricia. I love your show.
Yeah, and I loved being on your show as well. So cool. Well, you know, we're in the holidays right now. And as we were talking before the show, it's kind of a crazy time for people. And there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of demands we put on ourselves, especially. I think it's really important to remember that a lot of the stress comes from us, you know, right? Like we create a lot of it. So what are you seeing in your work as a coach for women? What do you see in your work are some of the pitfalls of holiday time and part of the, you know, some of the ways that women get in trouble?
Yeah, I see it. I've done it. I understand it. Yeah, very good question. One of the main ways I see women getting in trouble is this thought that we have to do it all, and we have to do it all for whatever holiday planning we're doing, but also we have to be it all in terms of the happy hostess and the comforting wife and the supportive spouse and the great friend, and that sort of we take on not only the pressure for making sure, you know, whatever the gifts are purchased and the experience, but also people's feeling states. That we get very into, you know, taking responsibility for other people's feeling states, like our parents or our spouses, and making sure they're having fun. And at the end of the day, wondering why we feel so exhausted and we might be eating or, you know, doing something else to satisfy the desires we've had all day and we've pushed down to take care of other people. So that is
OMG. I think you described most women on listening on the line right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's so easy to fall into that trap, isn't it?
It's so hard. I mean, that's really how we have been socialized, in that we are here to please and take care of other people. And, I'm 50 now, so I was raised to take care of my parents. It's sort of that sandwich generation, like you take care, you're responsible for up and you're responsible for down. And there isn't much of that, like, well, where am I responsible for me? And that is what I find a lot of women, if we haven't gotten to that aha moment yet, we will hear it in our health or with some sort of, factor. My company is called Strength, Mind, and Body. And I started this company about 15 years ago in my 30s, when I had a series. I was totally healthy. I was working as a personal trainer. I was totally taking care of everyone else's emotions, and everyone else around me was just super happy. And then boom, I landed in the hospital with 33 seizures in a weekend.
What?
And yeah. And they're like, well, wait a minute, look at you, you're a vision of health and you have it all, the husband, the dog, the fence, the kids, and it's like, right. But I was in such a people pleaser role and living a life, based on what I thought other people wanted of me. And instead of tapping into me, that it just absolutely affected my health. And that's where my company came from. The mind and body are connected. And we, as women, and men, whoever, it's a joint problem that we have. We're continually sort of shoving our physical experience and our body to the background, and that, like, go, do, be, just go do it, instead of paying attention to the little signals that we're getting, until, like me, we may have something pretty severe happen that was something I could not ignore.
Yeah.
But I also see lots of women, having loss of hair or disrupted sleep or, autoimmune disorders or cancer diagnosis. I mean, it's not good when we are ignoring the normal stress response that our body is designed with. And the holidays were especially right for that.
Yeah, so true. Just being on overload constantly. How did you pull out of that? Like, what were your steps towards healing?
Well, that was a pretty rock bottom moment for me.
Yeah.
That was, it was at a time when I was getting out of my first marriage. I'll back up a little. I was raised in a household. I'm one of 3 daughters, and I was raised in a very male dominated household. Even though there was my mom and my 3 sisters, it was very much what dad says is right, and almost religious in its nature, in that very, like, right or wrong, girls are not good in business, girls are here to keep dad happy. I really learned from an early age to be very careful with how I acted, because the messaging I was getting is that I was affecting my father, and that, I would be loved and accepted if I acted a certain way. And so I sort of took that inherent message into my first marriage. Well, first into an eating disorder, which I'll mention because of your show.
Yeah.
When you're feeling so out of control and you can't control anything, and what the heck, am I not perfect enough? And there was so much, my dad was so much in the, women, our appearance. And I remember we'd get donuts, and he would cut a donut in quarters, and he would say, so it's him and his wife and 3 daughters, and we each got a quarter, because he'd say, a minute on your lips, forever on your hips, and you don't want to watch, and you don't want to. So it was just so much of this messaging, and so much of this fear in me as a little girl of the basic human need of wanting to be accepted, and getting the message early on that I was not accepted if I listened to little Susie. I was accepted if I listened externally to what specifically the men were telling me. So then I went into my first marriage, which, as we know, if you don't heal your childhood wounds, they'll play out in your first marriage. And when I was 35, that is when I was having, as one does, this awareness of, wow, honey, like, you've been living a life based on other people's ideas for you, and going along with it, and looking happy on the outside, very much being a people pleaser, to my first husband too. If he said he liked roses, I liked roses. And if he said he didn't like me in button down shirts, I didn't like me in button down shirts. So there is, definitely take responsibility there. It's just when I was 35 and started to see that and started to push back and started to sort of push out of the bubble that I had been given, that women have this certain role and we're not good in business and we're meant to be in the home, and a lot of that messaging. And I started to push back against my husband, who thought I truly believed that. Then the dominoes came down and the marriage dissolved. My family did not want any part of that. My sisters also, because that was their belief of, we all were sort of drinking the same Kool-Aid from my dad. Right. And that was a fundamental change for me. And I guess a long answer to your short question of how I started to dig out, I really dug into myself and tried to take the next best step at every time, every single moment, sort of recognizing that not listening to myself for 35 years was not working, and that it was creating internal chaos in my body. And so to start listening little by little about what did Susie want? I mean, that was very unfamiliar language. Even like, what kind of sweater would I like? Like, I very much was in that. So it is, in these small steps of moving forward and trying to take different action.
Yeah. Have you read Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed?
Oh yeah. All three of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, what a story. I've only read Untamed, but I was so inspired by it. And I highly recommend it, because it sounds a lot like what you just described. And I think, honestly, I'm in my 50s as well. And I think it's just part of that journey of a woman in the culture we grew up in. It's like we're in that transitional culture. My mom was, the wife, the housewife, the stay-at-home mom. And my dad was, the one working and bringing home the bacon, so to speak, but it's controlling and judgmental and that kind of thing, until he changed. He did change toward the end of his life, and became, so different, but we definitely were raised in that way. Sounds very similar to my upbringing. And and I think that we bring that training into our adult life. And I did the same thing in my marriage as well. And it's just, it takes a while to wake up and be like, hey, wait a minute, like, this is my life we're talking about here. Like, if I don't live it, it's not gonna go any other way, that's happy to me. So we have to kind of break out and become who we're meant to be. And that is a journey. And for me, it's been a long journey. But thank God I'm on it, thank God I'm on it. Thank God I've broken out, and I've become more and more, who I'm meant to be. And my former husband was very encouraging of that in many ways, but also of another, of an earlier culture himself. So there were some ingrained ways too that I had to kind of break free from. So it's so interesting, isn't it? It's so interesting that's what we got to do.
Yeah. And I guess to get to your point about the holidays is that it still shows up. Like I am very hopeful that there is a new wave of, little girls who are accepting of their feelings and their desires and their wants and speaking up. And yet I do see this, a lot of the same programming that, how we look as women matters, even as we age. That's part of what I'm doing now, is trying to redefine aging. It's like, let's just change our mindset on what it means about getting older and what it means to be a woman and what it means to be all of this. And I a lot of the stress around the holidays is that we're still having this programming. And I see it with women in the 50s, but I also see it with women in their 30s, where they, have young kids and they're like, it's, I need to make sure that this is right. And that the husband, it's all of these, us taking it on for many different reasons, some of which, because if we're doing it right, and if we get that external praise, then we feel like we matter.
Yeah.
and we are worthy. And that's where the change is in this, like, hey, honey, you matter and you're worthy, even if your mashed potatoes are lumpy. And
Right. It is so true. And it doesn't, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it doesn't change that quickly, like it's our personal journey to make that change, and I think that collectively or culturally will change as we individually change and set a new standard.
That is a lot of what, when I was looking to leave my marriage and starting to change there, and got the pushback from my family, which was also financial pushback. There was a lot of financial demise in there that, I really was pushed against my motivation. And one of my big motivators was to show something different, to show I have 3 sons, biological sons from that. And I was like, is this what I want them to think marriages? Do I want to continue this pattern into their futures and their, like, is this what they think wives should be like? Is this what, is this what we think is possible? And then also for women of that, like, no, we can say, no, I don't feel like going to that holiday gathering, or I don't want to. No is enough. Our desires are enough. And I want to circle back as we look at our past, and as we're talking about, one individual making a difference, because we absolutely can. I find a lot of women and men are resistant to look at their past with sort of like the kind observer eye, because they think then they're blaming their parents or guilting their parents, or saying something negative about their parents. And that's where I've had a lot of ease in my life, and also helping clients come to a place of doing things differently, of just that awareness, like, okay, mom and dad and sisters did what they did with the tools they had. They did the best they could. I truly think I had the parents I needed to have to become the woman I am today. I don't think they were like, let's set out and screw up Susie, like, what parent actually says that? I think parents are really trying with their tools to do the best they can. And when we can look at that, because if we're here, we've had parents. And when we can look at that and see whether it's, our biological or adopted, or whatever family unit we had, to see, what messages we got, what wounds we had, and to look at that, not from a place of blame or shame of them, but a more of just a human acknowledgement. We don't get out of childhood unscathed. Like, we all have needs. They're not all going to be met. That's part of our life journey here. And when we can look at it more clearly, that's where we find that potential for growth.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, I love that you're sharing this and we're having this discussion, because I think it's so important. And I think we need constant reminders to drop into who we are and stand for that, because that's perfect and enough just as we are. So I think this is really powerful stuff.
Yeah, I do a lot of work with mindfulness and what I call the thought model, which is from Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School. But it is cognitive thought, that things happen in our life, like circumstances that are facts we just can't control, and then we think thoughts about them, we feel feelings, and we take action. And that think, feel, act loop is where we have so much of our power in the holidays, in our past, in our, everything. And when we can slow down and recognize any part of that think, feel, act, like the feel, okay, what am I feeling? I'm feeling frustrated. Okay, let me think about what frustration feels like in my body. Oh, it feels tight. It feels uncomfortable. And letting it pass, instead of feeling frustrated and going to reach for the nachos, or feeling frustrated and going to scream at the husband, or it's, and then also recognizing the thoughts we're thinking, like, what thought am I thinking to make me feel frustrated? That's where a lot of ease can come in for me around the holidays, and just sort of slowing down that roll, the think, feel, act, so that we can have, really the benefit of mindfulness is having that pause between the feeling and the action. And that can be really healing and helpful.
I love that. It reminds me of responding and not reacting. Yes. So that's the benefit of that pause, right? Is we can kind of compose ourselves and really drop in and think, what what do I really want to do? Do I want to go to that party? Like, is that a way I want to spend my time, or am I just people pleasing and saying yes, and so that is so critical, especially this time of year. So great.
Well, I am realizing now, sorry, it's late in the day here where I'm recording, but I'm realizing why I brought that up because we're going to have a feeling state in our body when we're doing something differently. So if we do say no to the party, we're going to feel our nervous system is going to be like, danger, danger, what are you doing? And it's helpful to have that knowledge and that mindfulness that it's like, oh, right, that's my conditioning. That's not my truth. I can slow that down. I can let it be there. That's like the old little Susie who was only given a quarter of the donut, or that can be really helpful in the holiday season also.
Yeah. So true. I love that. It is true. And it is uncomfortable to say no, like that is
to break
new.
Our patterns.
Yeah. That's new. That's new for us. And it doesn't mean we're bad or doing something wrong. It's just uncomfortable. It's a new way of being. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate that. I'm just thinking of the holidays. You want me to tell you one of my favorite holiday tools?
Let's hear it. I'd love it.
It helps a lot of people. So what we usually do when we're going into a holiday gathering that maybe we've said a strong, serious yes to, like, the holiday party or whatever, is say it's with family or with friends that we're used to, is we usually tell ourselves something about like, oh, this year is going to be different. Like, we set our expectations almost higher, definitely higher than they should be. So we're like, oh, this year mom's not going to drink too much. And this year dad won't comment about, whatever it is. And one of the things I love having people do is what I call family bingo. And so before you go, you just get a blank piece of paper and you fill out a grid with bingo sheets and you put in there the things that are realistically going to happen. Like you drop your expectations and you think of the year before or the last time you were with these people, like what bugged you about those people? And it's like, oh, right. Like Aunt Betty always comments on my clothes, or, Louise always asks me about that boyfriend that dumped me, or, Uncle Marty always drinks too much, or whatever it is. And then you put those in your squares. And then when you go to the party, and those things happen, those people show up how they've shown up. They're them. They're not, it's like they do that because that's who they are. It just nullifies the whole thing. You're like, oh, right, that's Aunt Betty. She drinks too much. You don't take it personally. Or, oh, right, that's my dad commenting on my, clothing. That's what he does. Or that's my mom criticizing my hair. That's what she does.
Right.
It nullifies it and makes it so that we don't take it as personally. And I have had individual clients do this, but I've also had families do it, like on their way to the family dinner, that they'll fill them out with like their 9 and 11-year-old. And they're like, okay, so what do we think? And it's a wonderful model that we can have for that. It really is sort of supporting that unconditional acceptance of people. Maybe we don't have unconditional love for some of them, but it is that accepting them for who they are. It's that like, right, she's going to talk the whole time. She's going to interrupt me. That's Betty. Or Bruce is going to ignore me. And, or so-and-so is going to burp at the meal. And then when they burp, you sort of wink, wink at, the people who filled it out. But it can be a very helpful tool to help us get through the holidays with people we're choosing to spend the holidays with.
I love that. I think that's great. And that certainly helped me, with my relationship with my mother and accepting her, like the things that used to just drive me nuts about her, coming to a place of acceptance, like that's her doing her, like it's got nothing to do with me. I don't have to react to it. It's like, there she is. She does what she does, and that's just who she is. And if I can accept that and just appreciate her for who she is, no, she's not how I would determine she should be, but why should she be really? She's doing her. So I find that takes the power of it out of it, but I love that idea of doing it as a family. That's really cute. And then you kind of have this private chuckle together, It
is. And it just neutralizes it further. It sets you up ahead of time for a calmer time. And then during it, I've had some families that forget they even did it. And then they're like, oh, but they just go into it different and with less drama, so that, because exactly that's what you're saying, that your mom says something, and if you're thinking the thought that is like, oh my God, she always does this to me, I'm like,
Yeah.
it's versus thinking that, yeah, that's my mom. Of course she said that. Like,
Right.
that's what she does.
Yeah.
You totally nullify it. And it just it puts you back in the power place instead of the victim. So
I love that. So I love the work that you do as a coach for women and feeling better about themselves and getting healthier. How can people get a hold of you, and what are some things that you want to just share with them before we wrap up?
I would love to have listeners head over to the Love Your Life show, which is my podcast, the one that you were a guest on. I work really hard to bring people tools so that they can live a life they love every single day versus what I was doing for the first 35 years of my life. And like putting, I say, like, I want your life to feel as good on the inside as it looks on the outside, and giving really mindfulness-based cognitive tools there every week with guests such as you. I also have a membership. If people identify as a woman and they're over age 40, I call it the Midlife Warrior membership. Warrior, WARRIOR. We a lot of tools in there to not worry, but we are in there and taking charge of our lives and redefining aging. And it's just a wonderful community of women who are done with the BS, really trying not to people please, really working on not being codependent and setting some healthy boundaries. And it's just one of the most fun things I do, and seeing us all in there. I love my warriors.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for that. And I have one. First of all, I just want to thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you. And I just love so many of the tips that you are sharing with us here. And I know you have so many more that we didn't have time for. So I hope people go to Susie's website and learn more, and also go to her amazing podcast.
I have Instagram too. That's where I have fun.
Instagram. Great. I have one last question for you, this being the Heal Your Hunger show. What is your deepest hunger?
I love feeling joy. So the hunger to just feel joy and lit up and excitement. I'm consistently aware when I wake up in the morning and raising my vibe and just digging in and feeling that joy and hunger. The hunger of joy. I think because for so many years I didn't allow myself to feel joy, and now it's still a practice I'm exploring. That's like, what does Susie do for joy? And then when I have it, it's so fun. Like, I was doing a puzzle the other night and I just kept repeating out loud. I'm like, this is so fun. My husband was like, oh my goodness. But it's just that, like, yeah. That would be one of my some
simple pleasures. I love that. Well, good for you. Well, you are definitely a beautiful representation of joy and healthy living. So good on you. And I'm glad that you are living your best life now. That's really beautiful, and a beautiful example for all of us. So thanks for being here, and happy holidays to you. And thanks everybody for tuning in. We will see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.